The following is a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
From the birthplace of modern winemaking, Sonoma, California, welcome to The Winemakers. Local experts Sam Couture, Bart Hansen, and Brian Casey, along with host John Myers, invite you to listen in as they discuss all facets of winemaking. So sit back, pour yourself a glass, and let's hear what the guys have to say this week.
Oh man, I'm just like on sleep deficit.
Well,
This is we're at
I haven't really fucking slept since I've been here.
I feel like
day 17 of the 4-day Hospice Duron extravaganza.
Yeah.
At least it feels like
That's
it.
right. That's exactly right.
Well, we're here with the Winemakers Podcast.
Yeah.
Our third and final installment, dispatches from Walla Walla.
Nice.
We got some friends in the room. We got MJ, the black wine guy. Finally, I'm surprised he didn't crash our other two recordings that we had while we were up here. But
I actually did some, I rolled some seminars,
right, you were a participant
I was, although,
and media guest.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I don't know if I've heard my media pass. I only 2 podcasts. But
This
Vicky
one
and-
can count,
Vicky
too.
and Aaron, we love you. And this event, you pulled it off here. So
It's been a blast. I don't want it to end, although I kind of want it to end.
No, it's been cool having it here.
That's
It's definitely a different experience.
the voice of Todd Alexander of
Hello.
many wine brands. It's hard to keep track. Hopefully, we'll go through that
I
today.
don't even know.
But yeah, you've been, you were sort of part of this whole like migration from California to Walla Walla, maybe leading that. What has it been like to have this? From our perspective, it sort of feels like a coming out party for Walla Walla to have hospice here. What's it look like from the inside?
I would say that's pretty accurate, and that's how a lot of people have sort of approached it on this side of things. Definitely, there's been a lot of excitement since it was announced it was going to be here, and it's definitely a big moment for Walla Walla, and hopefully, it's a lot of people in town that have never been here before see it for the first time, and that's really exciting. It's also, although it's a little cloudy, rainy today, it's a good time of year to be here. It's really,
Yeah.
it's pretty, everything's
It's
green.
been beautiful.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been really exciting, and hopefully there's more in the future. We'll see,
Yeah.
see what happens.
And we're all exhausted.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah, it
funny
is a
what
lot.
you said, man. So Jeb, I went to the Shout Enough to Pop seminar with Jeb, and he said,
That's Jeb Dunnick for those at home who are uninitiated.
Oh,
we're not all on
This
first name
way-
basis
hold
as
on.
MJ.
Not Jeb Bush.
All right,
Not
this
Jeb-
is,
not
this
Jeb
is,
Bush.
This is the Winemakers Podcast. You don't have a whole lot of pedestrians listening to this fucking shit, okay?
That's true.
But he said, obviously again, thanking Vicky for pulling this thing together, and he said, how many of you this is your first time in Walla Walla? All these hands went up.
Yeah.
Right? However, it was crazy. Just as many people had never been to Walla Walla, but had been to Shout Enough.
Wow.
It was pretty insane how many people had been to Shout Enough,
But never been here.
but never been here.
Well, sometimes from some parts of the country, it's probably easier to get to Chattanooga than to get
It's
here.
true. It is. Yeah. This is definitely like a remote place.
Yeah.
It's not near any major cities. It takes effort to get here.
Yeah.
Although I don't know who told us. I don't know if it was on the show or somebody else who said that starting next month. So for those of you in the San Francisco Bay Area or Sonoma, Santa Rosa to Pasco direct flights on Novello
No
starting
way.
starting May 1st.
Oh, cool. I've been.
Well,
I've
that's
been
so dope. You
I'll
probably
just-
won that forever.
I was just talking, like the other day, I was saying Alaska Airlines should have like a Walla Walla to Slow to Santa
Right.
Rosa or something,
Just
or Pasco,
The Vineland Connect.
But you
or
have to
something.
go all the way through Seattle.
The Winemaker Shuttle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's good to know. That's great. That's exciting.
Well, Todd, will you talk a little bit about your sort of journey up here? I know, again,
Mhm.
for those of you who the few pedestrian listeners that we have, MJ,
Who are listening because MJ's on the
who are listening because MJ's on the show.
That's what you're saying. I'm a pedestrian. Yeah, man.
Well, you're from New York. Do you even own a car? You're all pedestrians. You had an amazing career in Napa Valley. making some of the top wines down there. What was your sort of like journey and motivation to come here and stake your claim?
Yeah, it was interesting. In 2013, I met some winemakers from Washington on a trip to France with Moreau Cooperage.
Yeah.
And I drank the wines here. I knew a handful of kind of the top people from Washington. I was familiar with the wines and always kind of had it on my mind, like really interesting, good quality up there. But when I met these guys, the wheels started turning a little bit more. I was like, I want to get up there and kind of explore the Pacific Northwest a little bit because I love the Pinot in Willamette Valley. I like these wines from Washington and Walla Walla. But backtracking a little bit, I spent time in Napa and I was at a good place. I had a good job. I could have stayed there, but I thought it was more exciting, more interesting to try to go somewhere new that was already, I knew had a good foundation of quality and potential, but maybe there's still more opportunity and still emerging in a lot of ways. So it was just sort of all those things. And over the course of a few months, Carrie and I talked about it. It was like, we just kind of decided to start putting feelers out. And I reached out to these guys I met on the trip and they introduced me to Paul McBride, who owned the Force Majeure vineyard that they had developed. And the timing was really good because they were looking for somebody to come in and create an estate wine program. And I was like, well, that's kind of what I do, and at the same time, having the freedom to start other projects and, scratch other itches and whatnot, that was available to me. It's something I couldn't have done if I'd stayed in Napa. Right. I did think about maybe Paso too, but ultimately just, opportunities sort of present themselves and I kind of follow those paths and go through doors that open, and that's kind of how a lot of these things have evolved over time.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. And there was no big master plan. It was more like, go with the flow a bit, have something of an idea, and then just see what unfolds,
So, and we drove past the Force Majeure. So that's the estate winery down there in the
Milton Freewater.
in the rocks.
Yep.
Kind of, is it sort of just past Roti Cellars?
It's
or
just past. Yeah.
Just past Roti
If
Cellars.
you're going to the west.
Yeah, towards the west. Yeah, exactly.
We couldn't really tell. It looked kind of industrial, so we weren't sure if that was just where you were making the wine or if that's where people can come taste the wine.
So is the big gray building, then a brick building up front?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the winery. That's where we make the wine. And we have the brick building it's an old school, built in 1940. Cool. And so that property was 2 acres. The school was used up until I think 2014. There was another cinder block construction extension to that brick building. We tore all that stuff down, kept the original brick building, and then turned that into like hospitality. It's got some offices. We're still renovating it right now, and then did the entire new build on the winery, about 12,000 square foot production facility there. And yeah, then we own the vineyard right behind it, and then we have a property in Red Mountain, about 45 minutes away or so.
And is that the Weather Eye Vineyard, or is that?
No, that's Force Majeure Estate.
That's Force Majeure up there.
Weather Eye is also up there.
Okay.
Nearby.
And
the vineyard is.
I mean, that's the thing. You're involved in all these different projects, Todd. It's hard to from the outside to pull the threads and know exactly, which ones lead to where, right?
I have it pretty well in my mind.
I'm okay. That's a good play.
Pretty well delineated. But yeah, no, it's I mean, so yeah, Weather Eye started I started that in 2018, and there's a tie back to Force Majeure too, because Ryan Johnson, who's the vineyard manager for Weather Eye and who developed all the ideas for the plantings and whatnot, he actually is the one that planted the Force Majeure Estate vineyard too. And a lot of those concepts that went into designing that vineyard were his, and he farmed it for the first few years, and then he went over to Weather Eye. He's now also farming Force Majeure again, so he's come back in and he's farming Weather Eye. So he's great. He's an incredible vineyard manager. But yeah, and then I was making wine for another winery in town, helped develop a new brand called Pasha, and that was really fun to get that get that launched, and we stepped away from that, but a lot of other exciting things going on. We have a couple of brands that I started working with in 2021 that are just about to see the light of day. In fact, one of them is going to be poured today here at Hospice Tyrone. Cool. No one's ever tasted it.
What's the name of that one?
It's called Chimento. Cimento.
I've tasted it.
Okay. Yeah. It's 100% focused on the rocks.
Okay.
And it's 3 estate vineyards, and we're doing a production facility for that now.
Cool.
And we'll be crushing this fall.
Yeah. It's killer.
The wines are really good. It's really exciting.
And it's a rocks Grenache. Some Grenache from the rocks can be...
Yeah, it's a tough place for Grenache.
Right.
It is.
No, but this is silky. And it's like... I was talking to Donnie Burns, and I think it's like his first time. Maybe it's first time we were fact check that, Don. But he was saying... We don't. I don't know about your show. We don't fact check on our show.
Listen, cool. We can say anything.
Say whatever you want.
All I'm going to say as we sit here together here is, we know we all say shit.
This is the Grain of Salt Podcast Network.
The Grain of Salt Podcast.
But he was saying, he's like, man, fucking, I love that dude, Tyler. He's like that guy came up from Napa, and he's like, that guy's as good as any winemaker in the world, is what Don said about you. So,
that's really nice. That's nice of him. He's awesome too, by the way. Yeah. Love him. But
I can't wait to taste that again, because your partner in that.
Yeah, it's really
party's here.
It's really.
You were at that party. You just think that's when I was up. See, that's when I was in the VIP, man.
Oh, when I was down in. Down in the slums where we only had Jamay and Saxum.
All that first growth Bordeaux, Davisco.
Bordeaux what?
Yes, there was Bordeaux. There has been some Bordeaux poured at Hospice Road.
Blasphemy.
I think that the thief has done a good job on white Burgundy this week.
They're so happy.
They're having a good week.
They're having a good week.
Having a great week.
Staying open late.
They're having a good week. Hot poop. I know at least had a good day yesterday.
It was going off when I went in there.
Today again?
Yeah, there's a bunch of guys yelling at him in French.
Okay.
It's just how French people talk.
Yeah.
So it's just conversation.
Did you get anything from hot poop?
I kept it under $500, I think.
Okay.
Was my, but I got some shirts to bring home. I got some good records. I got a Jerry Garcia band, like an early Jerry Garcia pre-band Reflections that I had never seen before. All keeping the tasting house stock fresh. This I got
We were getting a little low on Grateful Dead.
Yeah, Elizabeth Cotton.
Oh, yeah.
Elizabeth Cotton album. That's dope. I'm stoked to have that in the collection. Got a pair of purple Ringo Starr drumsticks to take home to my daughter, and a drum pad so that maybe she drum on that and not the rest of the house. Yes. Probably leave those in the tasting room also.
Yeah, thank you.
But, and the restaurants have all been, firing on all cylinders. The whole town is just like, there's definitely a little buzz. But it's also, you walk through downtown, it's hard to know who's here just because they're here and who's here for hospice. But it's a great downtown walk for sure.
Yeah, it's a nice downtown. It's cool. It's got a lot of character. Yeah.
When you started at Force Majeure, which the owners came down and did a tasting with us a little while ago, super nice people.
Yeah, they're great.
Where was
what
I?
was like? I don't know.
What was like? We ran into them at work with Bill.
Yeah, they were in town. They bought some wine.
Okay.
That's right. Yep.
What was like step one? Did you come up here and they said like they already had vineyard planted? Or?
The vineyard was already planted and producing. They hadn't made any estate wines from it yet, though. It was just getting to the age where they were going to start really in earnest making wine from it. I just had conversations with Paul over the course of a month or so, and obviously it was a big decision for me as a total life change. So it was not something I'm just kind of like, oh, no big deal. Let's just move and uproot our life and go. And we lived in Seattle for 4 years. We were in Woodinville, just working out of a warehouse space for the first few years. Then we found this location in Walla Walla. Moved over here in 18, and the winery was finished in 19. But yeah.
So you got say in like how the crush pad was set
Oh yeah,
up.
I designed all that stuff, and on the vineyard side, we had, it was about 12 acres when I came up. We have like 19 now. So I've developed the second, because phase 2, and then I kind of advised Paul, as we should buy this vineyard, look at the North Fork property, and we got that, and have that vineyard under development now, and we'll work with Phil on that. So now it's Force Majeure is 3 estate vineyards, and there's one wine we make that's non-estate. It's the SJR Vineyard Syrah. And we have a nice, that's kind of as big as we want to make it, do about 4,000 cases.
Oh, really? Total 4,000 for
A little bit under, usually, but in like 22, we had a little more fruits. It's like 4,200 cases, probably how it's going to shake out.
And all of it sold direct to...
We have distribution too, but we have a big portion of it sold direct to consumer. Yeah, mailing list, and people can visit the tasting room, taste by appointment. So.
And the lineup is the classic sort of rocks, Grenache, Syrah.
We have red. A lot of it's Red Mountain. We have actually 3 Syrahs. So we have one Red Mountain Syrah. We have one Walla Walla Estate Syrah, and then we have a non-estate Syrah from the rocks.
Okay.
And eventually we'll have another Syrah from North Fork. Then we have a kind of Southern Rhone style blend, Mourvèdre, Grenache, Syrah. It's usually Mourvèdre dominant. Sometimes we also bottle a single varietal Mourvèdre in certain vintages. Then we have Bordeaux varietals, Merlot. We have a right bank kind of blend called Epinette. It's Merlot and Cabernet Franc.
It's
And then we have a couple of estate cabs. And then with Weather Eye, most everything's single varietal focus.
Okay.
We have a couple of wines that are blends, but the idea behind that was just like, we just want to see what the fruit's like, what the place is like. It's a totally new, it's at the top of Red Mountain, so it's very different than anything else planted at Red Mountain.
Right.
And it's a 320 acre ranch with about 30 acres under vine. And they sell fruit to a handful of wineries in Washington too. But so we were kind of like, do we want to do blends? Do we want to do co-fermentations? What do we want to do? And at least for the first few vintages, we want to just do single varietal and just see what the wines are like. Right. What we have. After a few years, vines get older, maybe we'll start putting together more blends and change kind of what we're doing there. But it's been fun because it's with the varietal focus and the site focus, it's like really pure expressions of these varietals in the site.
Will we just talk about Red Mountain in general a little bit? I haven't made it out there yet in my couple of visits up here, and I feel like the rocks is, sort of a known quantity as far as what it's like down there, soil wise, and the whole deal. But will you just kind of describe what from say downtown Walla Walla, where you're going to the Red Mountain, and what the situation is like up there?
Yeah, so Red Mountain is out near like Pasco. It's in Benton City, so it's near Tri-Cities.
Okay, so drove it past it on the way in from Highway 12. Okay.
Yep. It is not really a mountain. It's a hill. Okay. It's a big hill, but it's like a hill, and it's called Red Mountain because of the cheatgrass that grows up there and has a red color. And there's a lot of sagebrush, and the appellation is kind of on the south side of the ridge, and it kind of goes down into this flat valley. So it's like a lot of it's actually flat, but Force Majeure is up on the hillside, and then Weather Eye is at the top of the hill. And it's all, like everything out here, it's volcanic. It's all about basalt and wind-blown loess, fractured basalt. And you have concreted ash up there, and calcium carbonate in the soil, and you have flood erratics from the Missoula floods. Missoula floods were a big thing that happened up here that spread all this granite and flood erratics all over the place, and give you some diversity beyond just basalt and volcanic soil. And there's varying degrees of that depending on where you are. But the Force Majeure vineyard up there is on a hillside, The Syrah is planted Goblet. A lot of it is start a steep upper slope, and then it kind of comes down to the sub-hill. There's a little Viognier planted. And then in the flatter areas, we have a little more Syrah, but we also have the Cabernet and Merlot and things like that in the deeper soils. But yeah, it's the warmest AVA in Washington.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty warm because of the southwest exposure. Yeah.
Did you have the same like freeze pressures there?
No, not quite as bad as over here in Walla Walla Valley. We have more low-lying areas over here and closer to the mountains, and it gets a little colder here. It's usually not such a problem in Red Mountain. It can be, but not like over here.
So you're still doing like the burial canes and stuff up there?
No, we don't do any of that. That's pretty much specific to out here in the Walla Walla Valley and the rocks too. And in January we had, you probably know about it, but we had 3 nights or 3 days that were really super cold, 0 degrees, and it got down as cold as -7. A lot of the farmers around here that have been doing it a long time and hadn't seen that or hadn't seen something like that in a long time.
Yeah.
But so you go around, you see some damage. There's definitely an impact, but it's encouraging to see as much green as we're seeing because we just didn't know. We were looking at buds, primary, secondary, tertiary buds, and dissecting those, and the numbers didn't look good. So I expect we'll have it's just one of the challenges of farming out here. I expect we'll have a.
I was trying to silence it. Great job.
backwards. Yeah. So it's a interesting place to grow grapes in the winter is definitely sometimes a challenge. Yeah, and we can have hail in the spring. So far, hasn't been an issue, but
everybody knock on something.
See. Yeah, I knocked on wood. It's all good. We'll be fine.
No, this area is like, because we're kind of Rhone-centric in our personal lives, we kind of think of Grenache and Syrah, but I wonder, like, this area, do you see it more like Sonoma County where, we farm like 40 different varietals. Yeah. I think people kind of think of us for Pinot Noir and Chardonnay in Sonoma, but we kind of think of it as field blends, Rhone blends, but is it just are you guys still kind of figuring out what exactly you want to plant where to get the best expression of the
There's
varietals?
definitely there's a lot of exploration. There's a lot of trial. And even I could say, with the North Fork property that we have, we're further up the canyon. It's 2,000, it tops out at 2,200 feet elevation. And whereas in the rocks, we're around 800 feet. That's a completely new spot to be explored. Like, Christophe in Cayuse has a vineyard nearby, and there's another vineyard kind of in between, but we're further up the canyon in higher elevation. But we have no idea what that's going to be like. I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be really good, but we just don't know what the wine's going to be like. So that's
the one that Christophe has going like straight up the hills.
Yeah.
Crazy steep.
Yep.
Okay.
And his is lower down. It is really steep. It's a really cool vineyard.
Yeah.
I haven't walked it, but I've seen it from the road, and it looks amazing.
I don't think there's not a lot of walking of it you can do.
No.
You can walk into it, you can walk around it, but you can't walk through it.
When I came the first time I came, and he cornered me. I left Christophe. Black wine guy, you must come to see me.
Is he Japanese?
Dude, everybody thinks that it's pretty good Christophe. Where your mind? Anime man. But no, he took us up there, and it was like it'd be hard to walk when it's dry, but it was raining. Like it literally was,
It's really steep.
It's super steep. Yeah.
But it's pretty, that little canyon going up there.
It is. It's beautiful out there.
Yeah.
It's 10, 15 minutes just outside of the rocks. When you get back into that area, it's like a different world.
Totally.
And I think, it's by and large unexplored.
Yeah.
So the first time I went out there and saw it, I was like, we definitely need to do something here. And I love the rocks too, because there's nothing like it. The cobblestones.
That brings me to which I love, because this is great. Like, because you're a winemaker and you're successful, one scores wise, but like, why are the wines of the rocks so polarizing?
Well,
it's a great question.
One thing I've learned working with different vineyards within the Rocks AVA is that it tends to get painted with a single brush, but actually there's a lot of nuance from vineyard to vineyard, I've noticed, and some areas tend to have more of that quote unquote funk, and some of them are like more pure expressions of like a wet stone kind of minerality and fruit, nice fruit. But what you're speaking about is probably like the more wines that are like more in your face, like more of the funk driven stuff, right? So I like them. I think it's just sometimes when people have it for the first time, you can watch them kind of go, what am I experiencing right now? You know, they have to kind of wrap their head around it. And
we saw
it could be a good thing or not a good thing, depending on who it is. You know, some people are like, wow, this is just too weird for me. I find it really exciting, but it's just definitely not for everyone. And I think, higher pH that you tend to have, high potassium levels, and just the crazy aromatics are like just not everyone's cup of tea. Yeah. You know.
To your point, so I didn't get. Oh, it's so funny. I didn't get this on camera, but I sat down with Sidney Rice yesterday. Super fucking cool guy.
I met him once.
Super humble guy, and so he's giving my
name drop. Name drop.
Clink. But his partner was like, "Hey, did you tell him about like your Syrah story? Because they were he's saying, no, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this." So he goes, "No." He's like, "Okay, so the first time I ever had a Syrah from Washington State, it was horsepower."
Yeah.
And he was like, "I don't like Syrah." He didn't want to make a Syrah because he thought all Syrah was gonna taste like that because he's just getting into wine, and like I said, that wine is very distinct, and it is on that, it's more even that some of that culty Northern Rhone stuff, that really just that like I don't even like. I've had Wiles wine at $2,000, so what? Just doesn't hit my palate, right? Like it's one of the most iconic, great.
Yeah. Well, I'll say after getting to taste with Christophe today, not all horsepower tastes like horsepower.
Exactly.
And I think, and maybe this is the sort of the question for Todd on this also, like it's still such a new growing area that I think that the learning curve is still pretty steep, and people are still like, even somebody who is like as iconic as Christophe and his wines is refining his process and his farming and his winemaking style sort of on the fly. There's there isn't a blueprint, right?
I definitely think that's right. Christophe's innovative. He's done a lot of really cool stuff. He deserves a lot of credit. Yep. And he still is like progressively minded and forward thinking. I think that's awesome. You can never like sit still and really everything's changing all the time. Right. So you have to be able to change with it. We have climate's different now. Everything's extremes. So, changing what you're doing in the vineyard, and I'm sure you guys deal with this too, and then in the winery too, just being dynamic and being able to kind of anticipate and adapt when things are changing. That's super important. And the Robertsons, Steve Robertson, Brooke Robertson from SJR Vineyard, they've done some plug. No, we get fruit from them, or Force Majeure did from 16 to 23. So last year is the last vintage. We're going to use their fruit because they're taking it all in-house now. In-house, yeah. But she's been really innovative in developing their own kind of vine training method, right. Trying to just fine-tune things. So everyone's chasing the same thing, like trying to increase quality and have really good practices. And then just philosophies might differ on certain things, but everybody's trying to still make improvements.
Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, even in the 10 years or so that you've been here, but we've heard over the past few days about basically like the last 25 years of sort of like the rapid growth and change in this wine community. But what have you seen in the last sort of like 10 years? Not necessarily production and farming for sure, but also just the sort of vibe, how it's developed downtown, the community in general, the collaborative nature of it. It seems from somebody, and you spent a lot of time in Napa and Sonoma, it's refreshing in a lot of ways, sort of like how fresh and new this all is around here.
Yeah. I would say things happen a little more slowly here because probably because we are remote in terms of like people just coming in, and it's not like there's no kind of like feeding frenzy to grab land or, right. It's things happen gradually. The downtown area, I talked to people who were here 10 years ago and more than that, and they're like, it's changed drastically. I've lived here for 5 years now, and it hasn't changed a whole lot in 5 years. It just kind of, but we have really good restaurants. I think the thing that happens here is like restaurants sometimes don't make it because winter is really slow here.
Right.
So if you're reliant on like having to have people fill the restaurants month after month, it's not going to happen in the winter months. It's just it's cold, it's slow. Other than that, I mean, I think definitely there's been a handful of people, including some people I'm working with now, that have come into the area, and they are like big believers in the land and the potential. The Chimento project is the partners that are involved in that are great people who are very like methodical and very thoughtful, and all the approach. It's not like we're going to come in here and guns blazing. It's like we want to talk to everybody. We want to understand the place. We want to understand the people, and then make smart decisions. And I think that they're a great addition to the Valley. And I don't mean that because I'm involved with them, but they're just really good. No,
because they pay me to.
They're great. No, they're great. They're just great people. I knew them before we started making wine together. So I always liked them, and they're big supporters, not just trying to promote themselves, but they want everyone to succeed. I think we need more people like that, and people that have their kind of finger on the pulse and the right ideas, the right mindset. I would. It'll be interesting to see what happens after like this event, for example. All these new people who are all involved in the wine industry, whether consumers or producers or whatever, have now had a chance to come here and kind of get an idea of what Walla Walla is like. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if you start seeing some like outside investment.
I think you will.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where it's like a band that everybody knows really fucking good. Like, remember that band? Remember when Wilco, there was like 50 people to see Wilco, right?
Right.
And then like all of a sudden, one person comes and like, oh, this Wilco band is good.
I don't think there were ever a 50 person.
Thanks.
Uncle Tupelo.
Uncle Tupelo for sure. Yes.
Every band had a 50-person show, bro.
At some point.
I thought you knew the music business.
Let me explain. When one band turns into another band, the fans carry them.
By the way, Stacy just walked in.
Everyone quiet.
Speaking of Wilco.
Is that the? Well, I was thinking. This Grenache is great. I'm like, is this the one I reviewed?
It is the one reviewed.
Yeah.
It's
still good. Second go round. It's fucking good.
It's not hitting though. With this is not as good as the other bottle is going to taste that I'm about to open. Once in a while you get a bottle where you're like, oh, it doesn't taste as. I know it's better, so I'm excited to.
Brian would know.
He's whispering.
Yeah, no, I'm watching it get picked up on the level.
Right. We're telling secrets on
We're
there.
keeping it in there.
Hot mic.
Yes, we will share with other winemakers.
Hey, Todd.
Sorry, we left all the mega purple in the car.
Hey, Todd.
Don't give away secrets.
You are totally you just can't stop. You're like a tinkerer, right? So, how'd you end up doing the project in Chateau Neuf?
I wanted to talk about the Chateau Neuf project. Thank you. Go.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, this goes back to that. This goes back to what I was saying earlier about like opportunities kind of present themselves and the doors open. You kind of like, I think I'm going to go down that hallway and see where this leads, And Charlotte, obviously, I knew her for a while. We all have known her quite a while. I met her through Hospice Duran, actually, and we were friends for a while.
One of the gems of this
industry.
Of the world.
Of the world.
Wine world.
Yeah.
And the world in general.
Yeah. So she approached me. I guess it was like early 2020, and she just said, you know, it would be really fun to do something together. And I said, well, what does that look like? You know, I knew she had done some stuff with like Jeff Cohn and some other people, and I said, well.
Oh yeah, okay, fine. We'll ding
Come
Jeff.
on, you gotta- come on, you gotta
Jeff.
give Jeff
Oh,
some
Jeff.
My only thing was like, I didn't want to just do one and done. I was like, would you be open to doing something like ongoing if it goes well? And she said, yeah, you know, I've never really considered that, but you know, if the collaboration is good and we're happy, then why not? So then I started kind of rolling with some ideas like, well, I want to maybe make this like I want to focus on a single piece of the property. She was super generous and basically was like, you can use anything you want for this. So I go out to the property and like, there's this particular block of Grenache, 80 years old at the top of, her property is at the top of La Croix. And this single block of Grenache doesn't have a high yield. And
The super sandy soils that she has
it's
there?
very sandy. It's sandy. There's Gallet too, but like it's not just rock. It's diverse, which I like. And I think that property, considering how warm Chateauneuf is, it's really good to have a property like that that's more on the elegant side. And that's something that was exciting to me and different. It was like, I liked her wines, and I was interested to see like having conversations about winemaking. What could we do differently? How could we do something that would be really good and different from her typical like estate wines? So I came in with like ideas about co-fermentations and whole cluster fermentations, and things that because typically they just destem. So anyway, first year was 2020. It went really well, and then you know I'm about to go there in a month and bottle the 22s. I'm going to bottle that on May 28th. And
I believe that it's the only. You say the name of the brand.
Beatus.
Beatus.
Yeah.
It's the only 2020 wines that I bought were those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
I think they're hiding somewhere still in the cellar.
Maybe.
Or maybe somebody's taking them.
No, it's been awesome, and her and Laurent and Stefan, the whole team over there they're great to work with. I bought some tanks this year, so we're going to get even more surgical with what we're doing, and
Cool.
smaller fermenters and all that kind of stuff. Just trying to be a good partner to them.
So obviously, it's all Northern Hemisphere. So you're making wine here, and then in constant communication with them about what's happening in the field.
I wish I could be everywhere, but I can't be everywhere all at once. But yeah, they're super good with communication, and we're in constant touch, especially during harvest. And then kind of the same thing doing a Roussillon now with Jean Roger from Duna Van Calvé. We actually bought vineyards in there it is. We bought vineyards in the Morey area.
Okay.
So we have about 15 acres planted it's old Grenache, 60 to 80 years old on schist.
Cool.
North slope, north facing. One of them has got a southern aspect, but the main one is north facing hillside. And as warm as it gets down there, it's nice to have the northern exposure.
Yeah.
We have a little bit of Grenache Gris, and we have some Macabou too. So making one white wine.
Brian, shout out to varietals. Yeah, that's my boo. My boo. No, that's my boo.
Yeah, we just started that last year in 23. So that wine's in barrel right now, but I'm really happy with it. And Jean Roger is here in town for Hospice de Rhone. He's great, and his wife Marie, they're just awesome. So he's farming the vineyard. I think he's the best winemaker in that region. His wines are really, really good, and he's, farms everything organically, so 100% organic farming over there, and it's been really fun to dig into that area. And I met him through Kimberly Jones, another Hospice de Rhone connection.
Totally. Is she up here for this?
She's not here this time, no, but she's awesome, and was like, you got to come to Morey, and I went there, and I was like, oh my God, this place is amazing, and how can I do something here? And then one thing kind of leads to another. Next thing you know, making wine there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I know that we all have, except for MJ,
Yeah.
have to get to work here pretty soon.
Yep.
I know we gotta go pour wine. Will you just sort of quickly talk about how you got into wine and you know, sort of the 10,000 foot.
I like to drink.
You like to drink.
No, yep. I kind of my parents drank wine a little bit, nothing crazy. But my brother was.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up kind of all over the place.
Okay.
My dad was in the military, in the Air Force, so I was actually born in Alabama, and my parents are from Texas. Lived in Texas, Indiana, Ohio. I spent a lot of time in Arizona. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in Arizona, southern Arizona, growing up. But I liked wine. I didn't know a whole lot about it until my early 20s. I started studying it more. And Carrie, my wife, when we met, she had lived in Napa and she worked in restaurants, and she introduced me to all these wines from California that I was like, on a different level. I couldn't afford anything back then, when I was we'd known each other been together for 20 years plus. So I was kind of like, whoa, tasting some of these wines. And I always really loved Chateauneuf. Chateauneuf was like the first region that I really got excited about. And I went there. I took a trip, went through Bordeaux, and I wasn't on a wine trip. I was just doing just tourist stuff. I was like, I want to go to Bordeaux, the city, and I want to go over to like Avignon and Aix-en-Provence and all these places. So went over that way. This is like right at the end of college. Went over there, and I remember having a moment where I was on a train going past vineyards, and I saw the people out working in the vineyards, and I was like, I never even thought about making wine or anything about this. I drink it, but I never occurred to me that there's people doing this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
so I had this moment where I was like, okay, I really want to explore this avenue, and started researching how to get into winemaking. And I have a degree in something completely unrelated.
Like all the best winemakers.
I changed majors a couple times, but I ended up I have a degree in history with minor in art history and linguistics. And then after that, got into winemaking.
That tracks.
It totally tracks.
But,
it is history and art history.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, to me, I'm kind of fascinated by the history of wine and how it connects cultures and people from all over the place.
Right.
Even now, I've met so many amazing people through wine, like famous musicians and artists and architects and all these really interesting creative people that aren't involved in wine. And I think it's with the history kind of emphasis I've had in my life. I think it's really special to be part of like the story of wine. We're just a tiny little piece of it, but it's part of humanity. It's a really cool thing.
Totally.
So.
It'd be really cool if there was a podcast that was like kind of wine centric. That was like some like Beats, Vines, and Life, just something that brought all those worlds
I think
together.
it's been done.
Yeah,
That'll never work.
You're crazy.
Yeah.
Everybody check out MJ's new podcast, Beats, Vines, and Life.
Gratuitous self-promotion.
No, that's what it's a podcast.
That's why we love each other.
Yeah.
It's
Speaking
right there.
BFFs
forever.
For fuck's sake. Speaking of which, Todd, tell people how to, where to find some of the wines that you're making, and how to get a hold of you guys, where the socials and all the things.
Yeah. My personal Instagram is just @metodd, METODD, and then all the brands have a handle, like Weather Eye Vineyards, Force Majeure Vineyards, Chimento Wines, Beatus Wines, etc.
I say that today.
Beatus.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I had to do it for that because I was told.
Beatus, Vines, and Life.
Yeah, Beatus. I call it Beavis because I'm making fun of it, but it's Beatus.
That works.
I kind of knew I was saying it wrong, but I was also from New England, so.
Please say everything wrong.
Yeah.
No, but and then like just the web, Google the brands. I think is
Oh, and
hit the
also-
websites. We have a mailing list. People
also
can
Grenache Fest, Todd and
Grenache
Gary,
Fest,
Yeah, big shout out to Grenache Fest.
Ding.
That intersection of
You're caught on quick.
music and wine.
Yeah.
You know.
It's been that was awesome. Like having it do as well as it did last year, and now we're gonna do it again, and then hopefully next year we're gonna do it in New York as well.
Cool. Take it on the road.
Yeah.
We are.
I'll be there. As long as it's not while I'm still picking Grenache.
Yeah.
That's the only tough thing about it is it's
New
like
York,
November.
New York we could do anytime. It doesn't have to
Yeah,
sit
well, I
around
was thinking
the
like
box.
New
That's
York be a
awesome.
different time of year. Yeah.
Like
spring
New York
or
in
something.
July. I love the smell of urine. Floating through the air.
You go inside, turn the AC on, and drink Grenache. We'll be fine.
Could be anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Could be Columbus.
We should do it in the spring or something out there.
Yeah, I was thinking spring. Yeah.
Not August.
Yeah,
Not
not
July.
August. No, spring. Also, because it's like, all right, there's nothing really to fucking do so much around it. There's a downtime for guys, like
There used to be.
Uh,
There used to be. There is no longer.
Something
Yeah.
cut as much downtime.
well, no, he's like the James Brown.
None of us have a lot of downtime.
Yeah. Thanks
Well-
for me sitting in, man.
Well, thanks for
Having
joining
me
us.
on this. Thank you.
No,
It's great.
it's too short. There's a lot of things that we could dig into, but we'll get you when you're down in Sonoma one day and
I'd love to.
sit you down in the tasting house and drag more of the
I
story
need to
out.
come down there again. It's been a while since I've
Yeah.
visited you guys down there.
Well, anytime the door's open and thanks.
Likewise, up here, you're always welcome.
Yeah. I'm gonna try and figure out how to come up here more often because I love it up here. I'm digging it.
We're coming to Stacy's.
Are you coming
Very
in
good
July?
agreement.
Cool.
We are.
Brian and I am.
Okay.
Cool.
It's at the end of July.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'll be
We're
cool.
going.
Sweet. Yeah.
I
All
missed
right.
it last year because I was traveling, but I'll be here for it this time.
Well, we're gonna make our annual merrymaking, and
I mean, what goes better with a death metal wine fest than a bunch of hippies from Sonoma?
A black wine guy.
exactly.
Yeah, right?
I think now I have to come.
I mean, this is going to be Altamont of
The
wine.
cycle is complete.
Someone had fun at Altamont.
Somebody did. Yeah. The Hell's Angels.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Eee.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
we're gonna go to work now. But Hospice Drone has been a blast. Please, from us in Sonoma, relay to all your Walla Walla friends that we've thoroughly enjoyed ourselves and
I
the
will.
town has showed out well, and
Awesome.
we're excited for
Feels
what's
like
happening here.
Feels like it's been a good positive experience so far.
For sure.
I've had dozens of Walla Walla experiences, and this is definitely
Cool.
That's because we were here.
the best.
No, it's been great. It's been great. The weather's been even a little bit of rain and wind.
Yeah.
Big sky. It's been
Yep.
it's been beautiful. Food's been awesome.
Yeah.
So
People are okay.
people are all right. The wines have made up for it. The wines have made up for the people. No, we got
People are great.
a stream of people coming into this tasting now, so
Here
we better.
we go. Yep.
Time to go to
All
work.
right,
Go to work, man.
This has been
Come on, guys.
another episode of the Winemakers Podcast from Walla Walla, Washington for Hospice Jerome. We have shout outs, but read your emails, check your Instagram. Subscribe, review, subscribe to Beats, Vines, and Life, the third best wine podcast around.
I'll take that.
You got Levy, you got Bedrock, then you.
I don't even consider myself a wine podcast.
That's the smartest thing you said. and Todd, thanks for joining us.
No, man, thank you.
And
Thank you guys
definitely
for having me.
highly recommend folks out there looking for the wines that you're making because they're awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Cheers. Winemakers
Cheers.
out.